We walk these streets every single day, but have you ever stopped to wonder why our neighborhoods look the way they do? It's not just bricks and mortar. From the zoning laws that draw the lines to the infrastructure that guides our steps, urban design is actually about the invisible stories and the daily connections happening right under our noses. I'm Maria, joined by my friends. Welcome to Pavement and People, where concrete plans meet the reality of daily life.
You ever walk down a block that just doesn't make sense anymore? Like, what happened here?
Seriously, it's like the buildings are arguing with the people who live next to them. Seattle's got that going way too strong right now.
Upzoning, MHA policies, neighbors who just want things to feel like home. Today is one of those on paper versus on the street days.
You see it in almost every big city right now. A new, taller building goes up right next to a row of older, smaller houses. And you wonder, how does that happen?
Exactly. And more importantly, how is that supposed to happen? In a city like Seattle, which has seen explosive growth, that question is at the heart of a huge ongoing policy debate.
Right. Everyone agrees more housing is needed, especially affordable housing. But nobody can seem to agree on how to get it built without fundamentally changing the neighborhoods people already live in and love.
And that's the core tension. It's this collision between the city's blueprint for growth and what residents feel is the soul of their neighborhood. To manage this, Seattle implemented a policy called Mandatory Housing Affordability, or MHA.
MHA. I've heard that acronym thrown around a lot. It sounds complicated.
It can be, but the idea behind it was framed as a sort of grand bargain. It was this big attempt to connect the construction of new market-rate buildings directly to the creation of affordable housing.
A grand bargain, which suggests that not everyone thought it was so grand.
That's putting it mildly. The policy has been controversial from the start, and the results have been really mixed, raising big questions about whether the blueprint is actually working as intended on the ground.
Okay, so let's start there. What is MHA in the simplest terms? How is it supposed to work?
At its core, it's a trade. The city offers developers something they want: the right to build a bigger, taller, more profitable building than was previously allowed.
That's the upzone, right? Changing the zoning to allow more density.
Precisely. The city upzones a neighborhood or parts of it. For example, a commercial zone where buildings were capped at 40 feet might get rezoned to allow 55 feet, or a low-rise residential area that only allowed 3-story buildings can now build 4.
And in exchange for that extra height and density,
In exchange, developers are required, that's the mandatory part, to contribute to affordable housing. They have 2 ways to do this.
okay,
Option 1 is the performance option. They have to set aside a certain percentage of the units in their new building as rent-restricted affordable housing for at least 75 years.
So they build the affordable units right there, on site.
Yes. Option 2 is the payment option. Instead of building the units themselves, they can pay a fee into a city-managed fund. The Office of Housing then uses that money to help build affordable housing elsewhere.
so the goal when this rolled out citywide around 2019 was what? To just flood the city with new affordable units?
The stated goal was ambitious but specific: to create at least 6,000 new rent-restricted homes over 10 years for households earning 60% or less of the area median income. It was supposed to be a major tool in tackling the affordability crisis.
So a simple trade, density for affordability. It sounds straightforward enough.
On paper, yes, but how it plays out project by project, block by block, is where all the complexity and conflict comes in.
Okay, so walk me through what I would actually see. I'm a developer. The city upzones a parcel of land I want to build on. What happens next?
The first thing that happens is the zoning code itself changes. The city adds a suffix to the zone, like M, M1, or M2. Think of it as a tag.
A tag that means MHA applies here.
Exactly. That little letter signals that the new mandatory affordability rules are in effect. So when you submit your application for a building permit, the city's Department of Construction and Inspections, SDCI, flags it.
And they say, okay, you get this extra height, but you have to choose, perform or pay.
Correct. You have to formally document your choice before you can get your permits. If you choose to pay, the fee is calculated based on the square footage of your project, and the rates vary depending on the zone you're in, and those fees are adjusted every year for inflation.
Huh. Which option do most developers choose? Is it an even split?
Not even close. The overwhelming majority choose the payment option.
Really? Why?
It's generally seen as more financially predictable and less complex than managing affordable units on site for 75 years. The numbers are pretty stark. Through 2023, developers had paid about $300 million into the city's fund.
Okay, that's a lot of money. And how many units were built on site with the performance option?
In that same time frame, just 404.
Wow. So that original goal of 6,000 units from MHA, a lot of that is being funded indirectly through fees, not built directly into new market rate buildings.
Right. And the city seems to recognize this preference. There's even temporary legislation running through early 2026 that tries to incentivize the performance option. If you choose to build the affordable units on site, you can get a streamlined, faster administrative design review, avoiding the standard, more lengthy process.
So they're trying to sweeten the deal a bit for on-site construction. It seems like the policy is constantly being tweaked.
It is. Just last year, in September 2025, Mayor Harrell introduced new housing opportunities legislation. It complements MHA by opening up more areas for development and is expected to generate another $62 million in MHA funds. The system is definitely not static.
Okay, so we have the mechanics of the blueprint, but what about the other side of this, the neighborhood soul part? A zoning change isn't just a line on a map. It's a signal that a place is about to change, sometimes dramatically.
Absolutely, and that's where the fiercest debates happen. One analysis from Environmental Science Associates put it well, saying that zoning changes bring about misgivings, fueled by fears of gentrification, overtaxed infrastructure, and a threat to dramatically change the historic fabric of a neighborhood.
And that's what happened in Seattle.
Across the city, when the plan to upzone 27 neighborhoods was moving forward, community groups like the Seattle Coalition for Affordability, Livability, and Equity, or SCALE, and various neighborhood councils appealed the city's environmental review.
What were their main arguments?
They argued that the upzones, even with the MHA requirements, could actually make Seattle less affordable. Their fear was that allowing bigger buildings would spur a wave of redevelopment, where older, more affordable housing stock gets torn down and replaced with new luxury apartments.
Which can lead directly to displacement of existing residents, the very definition of gentrification.
Exactly. And there were other concerns too. Some advocates worried that because most developers choose the payment option, the new affordable units would be built off-site and concentrated in lower-income neighborhoods, reinforcing economic segregation.
So instead of integrating affordable housing, it could just be shuffling it around.
That was the fear. And it wasn't just citywide groups. We saw specific neighborhoods push back hard. In Wallingford, residents asked for a transitional zone to buffer the new, taller buildings from existing single-family homes.
To ease the transition visually.
Right. And in Crown Hill, the community counterproposed their own plan, a tiered approach, with the most intense development in the center of their urban village and then stepping down towards the edges. They were trying to reclaim some control over what the blueprint would look like in their community.
It's this fundamental conflict. The city needs a universal policy, but every neighborhood feels its situation is unique.
And they're often not wrong.
Some communities, like Maple Leaf, argued they just didn't have the transit or commercial infrastructure to support a sudden increase in population. It's not just about housing units, it's about daycare, parks, buses, and everything else that makes a neighborhood livable.
So you have these widespread community fears. Are they just fears? Or is there evidence that some of these negative impacts are actually happening?
That's the critical question. And the data that's emerged since 2019 has been concerning for MHA supporters. One of the biggest insights comes from the Sightline Institute, which focused on what they call the value exchange.
The value exchange. That's the trade we talked about. Density for affordability.
Right, but their point was that the math has to work. The value of the extra density from the upzone has to be greater than the cost of the MHA requirements. If the fees or the cost of on-site units are too high, the whole project becomes unprofitable.
And if it's unprofitable, developers just won't build.
They won't. And that could mean less new housing supply overall, which would just make the affordability crisis worse. And some research suggests this is exactly what's been happening.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what did that research find?
One study, discussed in a podcast from the UCLA Lewis Center, was pretty shocking. It found that when these kinds of affordability mandates are attached to upzones, developers tend to locate new projects away from the designated MHA zones.
Wait, so the policy designed to spur development in certain areas might actually be repelling it? They're choosing to build on nearby lots that don't have the MHA requirements.
Yes, it suggests that developers are strategically avoiding the strings attached. The analysis found that new construction, especially for low-rise multifamily and mixed-use buildings, actually decreased in some of the upzoned MHA-mandated areas.
That's a huge unintended consequence. You're trying to build more missing middle housing, like townhouses and small apartments, but the policy might be suppressing it.
It's a major concern, and even the city seems to acknowledge the challenge. A recent report commissioned by Mayor Harrell's office stated that MHA requirements, while not the only factor, play a relatively small but important role in making it harder to build multifamily housing in Seattle right now.
So the grand bargain might be economically unbalanced. The cost of the bargain is too high for developers, so they're just walking away from the table.
In some cases, yes, and that leaves neighborhoods in a weird limbo. They've been upzoned, sparking community anxiety, but they aren't even getting the new housing, affordable or otherwise. That was the entire point of the policy.
Okay, so where does all of this leave us? You have a well-intentioned policy aimed at a real crisis, but it's causing community backlash, and the economic data suggests it might even be counterproductive in some ways. Is MHA a success or a failure?
It's really not a simple yes or no. On one hand, you can't ignore the $300 million in fees that have been collected. That money, pooled with other financing, has supported the creation of over 4,700 low-income units. That's a tangible outcome.
That's not nothing.
Definitely not. But on the other hand, the policy seems to be failing in its goal of integrating affordable housing across the city through on-site performance. And more critically, if it's discouraging new construction in key areas, it might be undermining the broader goal of increasing the total housing supply.
So it's succeeding as a funding mechanism, but maybe failing as a development policy.
That's a good way to put it. The blueprint is generating cash, but it might be warping the actual construction on the ground in ways nobody intended. It also hasn't solved the trust issue with communities.
Right. The conflict between the city's plan and the neighborhood's identity. What are the big open questions now? What are people debating for the future of this policy?
The main question is how to rebalance that value exchange. Can the city tweak the fees or requirements to make development more feasible in MHA zones without giving away the farm? How do you provide enough incentive to build while still getting a meaningful public benefit?
And how do you do that in a way that brings communities along, instead of making them feel like this is all just being done to them?
That's the million-dollar, or in this case, billion-dollar question. Seattle's battle over zoning is a real-time experiment in urban planning. And right now, the central, unresolved question remains: can a city design a blueprint for growth that also respects the soul of the places people already call home?
Ever tried crossing Phoenix at 8 a.m.? My blood pressure just thinking about it.
Or you could be crammed into Tokyo's subway, counting heads and unread messages. Completely different kind of chaos.
Today, it's all about those daily commutes and how city design gets tangled up with our stress and social lives.
Okay, so let's talk about something almost everyone does, but in vastly different ways: the daily commute.
Right. It can be a quiet moment of reflection or the most stressful part of your day. And a lot of that comes down to where you live.
Which is what we're digging into today. We're looking at two extreme examples: Phoenix, Arizona, and Tokyo, Japan. One is a classic American car city, the other is a global model for public transit.
And the core question isn't just about cars versus trains, it's about the human toll. We want to unpack how these fundamentally different urban designs affect a commuter's stress, their time, their health, and even their connection to the community.
Yeah, because it feels easy to just say trains are good, cars are bad, but I have a feeling it's way more complicated than that.
It absolutely is. There are very real, measurable costs to both systems. In Phoenix, you see the cost in lost time and isolation. In Tokyo, you see it in crowding and physiological stress. The debate isn't about which is perfect, but which trade-offs a city and its residents are willing to make.
So we're going beyond just the minutes spent traveling and looking at the entire human experience of that journey. What does it actually feel like?
Exactly. From the moment you leave your front door to the moment you arrive at work. That whole experience is shaped by decades of policy and planning.
Okay, so let's start there with the planning, the design DNA, as you put it. What makes Phoenix a car city?
Well, Phoenix's design, especially after World War II, was all about outward expansion. Think single-family zoning, endless neighborhoods of houses with yards.
Which means everything is really spread out, low density.
Precisely. That low-density sprawl makes walking or biking to the store impractical, and it makes running efficient public transit incredibly difficult. Then you add the infrastructure choices, a massive investment in highways and roadways.
And parking. I imagine you need a lot of parking.
An almost unbelievable amount. One study found Metro Phoenix has about 3 parking spaces per person. For 4 million residents, that's 12 million parking spaces.
Wait, 12 million? Okay, wow. So the city is literally built to make driving the easiest and maybe only choice.
It's the path of least resistance, by design. Now, contrast that with Tokyo.
Which is the complete opposite, right? High density.
Yes, but it's organized around a specific principle: transit-oriented development, or TOD. The idea is to build high-density, mixed-use neighborhoods with homes, shops, offices, all clustered around major transit hubs.
So life revolves around the train station, not the highway.
Exactly, and policy reinforces this. Car ownership is actively disincentivized. Parking is expensive and scarce. Meanwhile, there's been continuous investment in what is now the world's largest public transit network, over 2,000 kilometers of rail lines.
It's such a different philosophy. One designs the city for the individual in their private car, and the other designs it for the collective, for people moving together.
And that fundamental difference in philosophy creates 2 completely different daily realities for commuters. The numbers tell part of the story. Car ownership in Tokyo is just 0.46 cars per household, compared to 1.95 in the US. But the qualitative experience is where you really see the impact.
Okay, so let's walk through that. Paint a picture for me. A typical commute in Phoenix.
All right. Your day starts in a suburban home. You walk outside, not onto a bustling street, but into your garage or driveway. Your first social interaction is with your car.
Okay, I feel seen. Then you're on the road.
You are, and you're likely in traffic. A 2025 report found Phoenix drivers lose an average of 76 hours a year to congestion. That's almost 2 full work weeks.
76 hours. And I bet it's not relaxing time. A Robert Half survey ranked Phoenix as having the 4th most stressful commute in the country.
It's not. The average one-way trip is about 45 minutes, often in bumper-to-bumper traffic. You're isolated in your car, maybe listening to the radio, but you're not interacting with your city or its people. You're just moving through it, enclosed in steel and glass.
And then you get to work and have to find parking. Oh wait, no, that part's easy.
That's the one easy part. But your arrival is a walk across a vast, often scorching parking lot. The entire journey is a private, disconnected experience. The valley-wide cost is staggering. Over 203 million hours wasted in 2024, costing about $1,645 per person in lost time and fuel.
Okay, that's a bleak picture. Now let's switch gears. What does that same morning commute look like in Tokyo?
It's a world apart. You leave your apartment and you walk. You're immediately part of the public realm. You walk past neighbors, local shops, and then you arrive at the train station.
And the station itself is a big deal, right? It's not just a platform.
Not at all. It's a vibrant hub of activity. There are shops, restaurants, bakeries. It's a place where people meet. And the experience is designed to be less stressful. For instance, instead of a harsh buzzer when a train is leaving, many stations use unique little jingles called Hasha melodies.
That's a nice touch. I read that helped reduce passenger injuries from rushing.
By 25%, yes. It calms the atmosphere. But then you get on the train, and here's the major trade-off: crowding.
Right. The infamous packed Tokyo subway cars.
Exactly. You're in a shared public space, but it's often so crowded that an unwritten rule of dead silence is maintained to minimize annoyance. So you're surrounded by people, but there's very little direct social interaction. It's a different kind of isolation. Not of being alone, but of being an anonymous individual in a massive crowd.
Huh. So it's not a social free-for-all. It's a shared experience, but a very orderly and quiet one.
Extremely orderly. The system is famous for its punctuality, but the journey itself, while efficient, can be physically and mentally taxing in its own way. Your arrival, though, is seamless. You step out of the station and you are immediately in the heart of a bustling commercial or business district. No parking lot to cross.
So we have these 2 very different experiences. Let's dig into the data on the human cost. What does all that driving in Phoenix actually do to people's well-being?
Well, an ASU-led study found a really interesting link. They discovered that when people have to use cars for more than half of their daily activities, their overall life satisfaction declines.
So even though having a car might feel like freedom, being completely dependent on it is, well, depressing?
That's what the data suggests. It points to a hidden mental and emotional cost. That feeling of being stuck in traffic, the lack of spontaneous social interaction, the disconnect from your community, it adds up.
It's the isolation we talked about. The car is a private bubble, and that seems to have a real psychological impact.
Right. The urban design that prioritizes cars can inadvertently foster a lack of community cohesion. You drive from your private garage to a private parking spot, minimizing the chance for those small, unplanned encounters that build a sense of place.
Okay, so the cost in Phoenix is about isolation and frustration. But Tokyo's system isn't a stress-free utopia either. What are the hidden costs there?
No, not at all. The research on Tokyo commuters is fascinating and frankly a bit alarming. One study found that dissatisfaction with in-vehicle crowding directly reduces life satisfaction.
So that feeling of being squished into a train car has a measurable negative effect.
A very measurable one, and it gets more intense. For male workers with commutes over 90 minutes, researchers observed physiological signs of chronic stress. Their fight-or-flight systems were more active, even when they were at rest.
Wow. So their bodies are in a constant state of low-key stress because of their commute.
That's the implication. Another study on teachers found longer commutes were linked to less sleep and reduced physical activity, and it even affects young people. A 2024 study found high school students with commutes over an hour were 1.6 times more likely to experience depression.
So the problem isn't just the crowding, it's the duration, the sheer amount of time spent in that stressful environment.
Exactly. A survey in the Kanto region showed commuters traveling over an hour experienced 8 times more stress and slept significantly less. So here's the debate. What's worse, the psychological stress of isolated, unpredictable traffic in Phoenix, or the physiological stress of crowded, lengthy, but predictable train rides in Tokyo?
It's a really tough question. The studies are measuring different kinds of negative impacts. One is about life satisfaction and time lost. The other is about cortisol levels and sleep deprivation. There's no easy answer for which is better.
There really isn't. It shows that both models, when pushed to their extremes, impose a significant human cost. They just manifest in very different ways.
So where does this leave us? Are these cities just stuck with the consequences of their past design choices?
Not entirely, and that's the hopeful part. Both cities are actively trying to mitigate the worst effects of their systems. They're not static.
What's happening in Phoenix? How do you retrofit a car city?
It's a slow process, but there's a shift. They're expanding the light rail system and focusing on creating those transit-oriented communities, or TOCs, that Tokyo perfected. They're trying to build density along transit corridors.
So, trying to create walkable hubs in a sprawling landscape.
Exactly. And there are legislative changes too. A recent state law, HB 2721, now allows for more diverse housing types like duplexes and triplexes near city centers to encourage that infill development and hopefully reduce car dependency.
And what about Tokyo? How do you make a super efficient but stressful system better?
Their focus is on optimization and improving the quality of the experience. They're still investing in new rail lines to ease congestion on existing ones. There's also a big push for cycling infrastructure, aiming to build hundreds of kilometers of new bike lanes.
That makes sense, giving people another option for shorter trips that doesn't involve getting on a packed train.
Right. It's about relieving pressure on the core system. So, in essence, Phoenix is trying to build a transit spine, while Tokyo is trying to add more capillaries to its already robust network.
So, to wrap this up, the big takeaway seems to be that there's no single perfect model for urban mobility. The design of a city's transportation network is really a story about its values, and both models have these deep, hidden human costs.
That's it, exactly. And the biggest open question for planners everywhere is how to find a balance. How do you get the efficiency of Tokyo without the stressful crowding? And how do you provide the personal space that Phoenix offers without the isolation and lost time? Finding that middle ground is the central challenge for the future of urban design.
Have you ever ignored a sidewalk just to walk straight through the grass?
Every single time. Those dirt paths are like little rebellions against the city planners, right?
Exactly. The unofficial routes tell you way more about people than any blueprint ever could.
You know, you see them everywhere. In parks, on college campuses, next to apartment buildings.
Those little dirt trails worn into the grass where people just cut the corner.
Exactly. The ones that ignore the perfectly good paved sidewalk right next to them. I've always just thought of them as shortcuts.
They are, but they have a name: desire paths. And they're a lot more than just a shortcut. Some urbanists call them free will ways or the people's paths.
Free will ways? That sounds a little dramatic for a patch of dead grass.
It might sound that way, but it gets at a really fundamental idea. A desire path is essentially a silent vote. It's people providing feedback with their feet, showing planners where a path should have been.
Okay, feedback with their feet. I like that. So it's this small, almost unconscious act of rebellion against the official design.
Precisely. It represents this constant low-level friction between the top-down vision of an architect or planner who thinks they know best and the bottom-up reality of the user who actually lives and moves in that space every day.
This feels connected to what we've talked about before, like in Seattle with the zoning debates, or the massive design differences between a car-centric city like Phoenix and a train-focused one like Tokyo.
It's the exact same theme, just on a micro scale. It's the plan on paper versus the reality on the ground. And these little dirt paths reveal so much about human nature, efficiency, and how we instinctively try to optimize our world, one footstep at a time.
So this isn't just about landscaping. It's about understanding human behavior to build better spaces.
That's the core of it. We're going to look at how these paths form, what they tell us about our own psychology, and how some of the smartest designers are learning to listen to them instead of fighting them.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Why do we do this? Is it pure laziness? Just not wanting to walk an extra 20 feet?
That's the surface-level answer, and it's definitely part of it. Humans are hardwired for efficiency and convenience. We instinctively look for the shortest, most direct route to save time and energy.
So it's an optimization problem. My brain just calculates the path of least resistance.
Exactly. And some theories suggest this goes way back. Evolutionary psychology points out that in our ancestral environments, conserving energy was a critical survival skill. Minimizing effort meant having more energy for hunting, gathering, or escaping danger. That instinct to not waste a single step, it's still with us.
Huh. So cutting across the quad is linked to our cave-dwelling ancestors. That's a stretch, but I kind of see it.
It's a deep instinct. But it's not just individual calculation. There's a social element too. Social learning theory comes into play. You see someone else take a shortcut, and it works for them. They get to the bus stop faster.
And then you're more likely to do it yourself. It's imitation.
Right. And then there's operant conditioning. Every time you use the path and it saves you 15 seconds, that's a small positive reinforcement. Your brain learns this behavior is rewarded, so you do it again.
And as more people do it, the path becomes more visible. A little bit of trampled grass becomes a dirt line.
Which creates what's called an attraction effect. The more visible the path becomes, the more it draws other people in. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. It starts as an individual choice, but it quickly becomes a form of collective action, a wisdom of the crowd creating a new piece of infrastructure.
So this isn't just about efficiency then. The research mentions something about resistance.
Yes, and that's the sociological layer. Beyond just saving time, creating a desire path can be an act of resistance, even if it's subconscious. It's a statement against a design that doesn't work for you, a quiet declaration of autonomy.
So when a designer puts in a big, sweeping, decorative curve in a sidewalk, and people just walk a straight line through the grass, they're not just saving steps. They're sort of rejecting the designer's aesthetic choice in favor of their own practical one.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's this beautiful, simple illustration of the gap between how spaces are designed and how they are actually used. It's an unwritten conversation, and the desire path is the people's response.
Okay, so this tension has existed for as long as we've been building things. Have planners and architects always been at odds with these desire paths? Putting up keep off the grass signs?
For a long time, yes. The default response was often to see it as a problem to be solved, something to be blocked with fences, thorny bushes, or signs. Central Park in New York famously spent decades fighting them.
And did it work?
Not really. The paths just moved. People are persistent. Eventually, many of those desire paths in Central Park were paved and integrated into the park's official routes. They had to concede to human nature.
So there are cases where planners just gave in. Are there any where they actually embraced it from the start?
Absolutely. And some of the most famous examples come from university campuses, which are like perfect laboratories for this stuff. At Michigan State University, for instance, they initially put in rigid, straight sidewalks in the 60s and tried to block all the shortcuts.
Let me guess, the students just walked around the fences.
Of course. Over time, the university learned to incorporate these user-generated routes into their campus design. They started paying attention.
The research mentioned a story about Ohio State University involving a hot air balloon?
Yes, it's a fantastic, though maybe slightly apocryphal story. The legend goes that in 1914, the university architect, Joseph Bradford, took a flight in a hot air balloon right after a fresh snowfall to see where the students' tracks naturally formed paths in the snow.
No way. So the snow basically created a temporary map of where people wanted to walk.
Exactly. He then supposedly used that map to lay out the formal paved walkways on the main campus oval. Whether it was a balloon or just watching from a high window, the principle is the same. Observe first, then build. Virginia Tech and UC Berkeley have similar histories of user-led design.
It's not just campuses though, right? There was a mention of Broadway.
Broadway is maybe the oldest and grandest desire path in North America. It started as the Wick-Quoskek Trail, a path created by Native Americans that ran the length of Manhattan.
So it existed before the city grid.
Long before, it was the most efficient route, naturally winding around hills, swamps, and streams. When European colonists laid out their rigid street grid, Broadway was one of the few native paths that was too established, too logical to erase. It survived because it was, simply, the best path.
Wow. So that diagonal slash through Manhattan is a ghost of a much, much older desire path. It really shows how these small choices, repeated over centuries, can shape something as massive as a city.
Okay, so observing paths in the snow is clever, but it feels a bit analog. How do planners approach this today? Are they still just waiting for the grass to die?
Some still use that principle, but in a more systematic way. It's often called the wait-and-see approach. In Finland, for example, city planners will intentionally not pave paths in new parks. They wait until after the first snowfall.
The Ohio State method. They let the footprints in the snow guide them before they bring in the pavers.
Exactly. A fantastic modern example is the redesign of Norrport Station in Copenhagen. It's a huge, busy transit hub. The designers observed the desire lines that people made in the snow during winter to figure out the most logical places for station entrances, shelters, and even bicycle parking.
So they used the city's own weather as a design tool. That's smart. But what happens when you can't wait for snow? Or when you're designing something from scratch?
That's where technology comes in. The really cutting-edge approach is to move from being reactive to being predictive. Planners are now using something called agent-based modeling, or ABM.
Agent-based modeling. What does that actually mean?
Think of it like a simulation. You create a virtual environment, a digital twin of a neighborhood or a park. Then you unleash thousands of digital agents, which are basically little virtual people. You give these agents goals, like go from the dorm to the library, or walk from the subway to the office.
And these virtual people are programmed to seek efficiency, just like real people.
Precisely. The model incorporates things like path optimization, how people avoid obstacles, and even social cues.
As these thousands of agents move through the digital space, they leave footprints, and the simulation can predict where desire paths are most likely to emerge.
Wait, does this actually work? How accurate can it be?
It's getting surprisingly good. One 2025 study in Computers, Environment, and Urban Systems developed a framework that achieved around 60% accuracy in mimicking real-world pedestrian navigation.
60%. Okay, that's not perfect, but it's a pretty powerful starting point.
It is, and the potential is huge. Another research project developed a tool called RedPass. They used it to simulate optimal desire paths in existing US neighborhoods and compared them to the road networks.
And what did they find?
They found that better aligning roads and paths with pedestrian intent could reduce average walking distances by about 28%. Imagine making a neighborhood almost 30% more walkable just by using a smarter model to lay out the paths in the first place.
Wow. So we're moving from reading clues in the mud to running complex simulations that can prevent bad design before a single stone is laid. That feels like a massive leap. Okay, this all sounds pretty straightforward then. Listen to the people, pave the dirt paths, use the simulations. Problem solved, right?
Well, it's not always that simple. The paths tell us what people want to do, but that's not always the safest or most sustainable or most equitable thing to do.
What do you mean?
For one, there's the ecological impact. In a place like Yosemite National Park, desire paths can damage sensitive habitats and cause soil erosion. The National Park Service actually monitors them as an indicator of human activity concentration, but they can be a real problem.
Okay, so there's a conflict between human convenience and environmental preservation. That makes sense.
There's also the issue of accessibility. A worn dirt path might be fine for some, but it's an obstacle for someone with a walker, a wheelchair, or pushing a stroller. Paving every desire path might not be feasible or desirable, so you create a two-tiered system of access.
And what about that idea of resistance? It seems like sometimes people defy the planners just for the sake of it.
There's a fascinating study from Eastern Sydney that speaks directly to that. Researchers observed a desire line and then put up signage officially marking it as closed. Initially, usage dropped.
As you'd expect.
But over time, it surged. Usage actually increased by a factor of 4. The researchers called it persistent disobedience, or sticky behavior. About 40% of users still preferred the closed path.
Huh. So telling people not to do something made them want to do it more. Why?
That's the open question. Was the official path that much worse, or was it a small act of reclaiming autonomy? It complicates the simple narrative of pure efficiency, and it shows the challenge planners face.
And these paths aren't permanent fixtures either, are they? The research on Detroit was pretty stark.
It really was. A 2019 study conducted a huge census and found over 5,680 desire lines in Detroit, totaling more than 150 miles. They were a vital, citizen-created mobility network, especially in areas with vacant land.
But they were disappearing?
Rapidly. Between 2010 and 2016, just one area, the Lower East Side, lost about 70% of its desire lines. This was due to changes in land management, abandonment, and development. It shows that this informal infrastructure is fragile. It's not just about paving them. It's about recognizing their social value and finding ways to preserve them.
So there's a real debate here. They can be signs of dysfunction, tools of resistance, essential infrastructure, and environmental hazards, all at the same time.
Exactly. And that's why simply saying pave the desire paths is an oversimplification. The real challenge is to understand what each path is telling you about that specific place and its people.
So where does all of this leave us? What's the big takeaway for how we should be building our cities?
I think the biggest takeaway is a shift in mindset. It's about humility in design.
It's moving away from the idea of the master planner who dictates from on high and toward a model of co-creation, where designers are in conversation with the people who use the space.
So the desire path isn't the problem, it's the data. It's free, real-time user feedback.
That's the perfect way to frame it. It's a data point that reveals a need, and cities are starting to formalize this. In El Cerrito, California, documenting a desire path is now the first official step in considering where to put a new marked crosswalk. Waco, Texas has a similar policy.
So they're literally writing desire paths into their planning codes.
They are. It acknowledges that these silent votes are legitimate and should inform how we invest in infrastructure. The goal is to make the official world match the real world a little more closely.
But we're still left with those open questions, right? How do you balance this user feedback with the needs of ecology, or safety, or accessibility for everyone?
That's the ongoing work of good urban planning. There's no single answer. The key is context. In a sensitive nature preserve, you might block a path and educate users. In a dense urban area, you might pave it and add lighting. In a community like Detroit, you might work with residents to preserve and maintain the paths that are most important to them.
So the desire path is really just the beginning of the conversation, not the end.
Exactly. It's a prompt. It forces us to look closely at the spaces we inhabit and ask, who is this for? Does it actually work for them? And if not, why? Answering those questions is how we get from just a patch of dirt to a truly human-centric future.